Behind every great customer experience is something even more important: great people. But contact center leaders today are navigating a rapidly changing workforce, hybrid teams, new expectations around flexibility, the challenge of recruiting and developing talent, and making sure agents are supported, skilled, and ready for increasingly complex customer conversations. In this episode, we're joined once again by Richard Winterburn, Kelly Brickley from COPC, and Ramon Szeitszam from Spark, as we unpack the people insights from the latest CNN Industry Research. From work from home trends and attrition patterns to training, leadership development, and the future of the contact center workforce in New Zealand. Welcome to the Kiwi CX Collective podcast from CCNNZ.
Hi, thanks for joining us. It's Richard Winterburn here. I'm from CCNNZ, and you're with us for podcast number 3 in our 3-part podcast. This one is about people. So we had people, process, and technology, and we've decided to be ingenious and run it the other way around, with people being the exciting bit, and we're going to do that last. People are the core of your contact center, and they're the ones that give the customers the real fantastic experiences that we expect them to do and love them. So let's have a look at what our COPC respondents thought about people and how they're going to work in future in the contact centres in New Zealand. Our first element is to look at work at home management, or how to get your people working from home. And there's some really interesting stats in here, isn't there, Kelly? I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So there's been a 6% increase in the number of agents working from home. So I know that after COVID, there was a big push to get everyone back in the office. But like I say, it seems to be a swing the other way. So a 6% increase, agents working from home. Now, what is that driven by? Is it, recruitment, not being able to find staff locally, or needing to find, staff only want that option to work from home? It gives them more flexibility. Is it a retention strategy? So I'd sort of would be interesting to understand what has driven that shift.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously COVID helped a lot of people work at home, and for some people it didn't help them work at home, as psychological challenges, weren't there, about being isolated and things. But it was a huge draw for quite a lot of our agents. So they saved some money, they were able to stay with their families and save some time during the day. Ramon, what do you think is coming out of the information that we've got here?
Yeah, I think organisations are just becoming more mature when it comes to managing work at home, and as a result, maybe they're just becoming a bit more comfortable with it. So, and technology goes along with that as well. I think we've seen a lot of contact center platforms, for example, evolving their quality management tools to better support remote workers.
Yeah, I think if we move to the next slide, just leading on from what Ramon said there, this was really great. It's telling us that the top 2 box, 32% of centres now believe that work at home staff are either much more effective or somewhat effective. That's down from 2024, but the not too much of a difference has increased. So it actually 100% of contact centres are saying there's either no difference or they're somewhat more effective for work at home agents. So I thought this is really positive news, because this is saying to me that, as to Ramon's point, we've matured through the challenges faced with having staff working remotely, and typically that is through coaching and training and supporting of them, and we've learnt how to do that well, and I think that's reflected in these stats. So I think this is incredibly positive for the industry. So this next slide talks about sort of onboarding new staff. So we can see that while they're being onboarded, while they're through their going through their induction training, they have to be in the office. So 65% are saying they have to be in the office. But we do need to consider that if we are hiring people outside of our region, or hiring them in the regions, if we've got contact centres in Auckland or Wellington, we're hiring in the regions. That's not going to be an option. So yeah, but that makes sense to me. While they're learning, getting them in a room, teaching them the systems, the processes, and about our customers. So that makes sense. Some of them do 25% as a combination of time in the office and time from home. And only 10% do it completely virtually. But like I said, with COVID, we just had to transition really quickly and teach agents virtually. But again, we're maturing through that, and we're getting much better at it. And then when can frontline staff members begin to work from home? When they finish training. So 26%, so a quarter of you basically said when they finished training. 32% once they've met their performance levels. Just sort of a key point here is at COPC, one of the things that we recommend is that we need to verify before they leave training that they are able to do the job at the required standards. So we need to do some sort of testing and verification process before we let them go onto the floor. If they don't pass that verification process, we recommend that they go back either into nesting or what is a term that you may call it, or supported much more closely until they're able to be verified. Just as a thought on that one.
What do you think of those two stats, Kelly? I was just wondering, is it reflecting that organisations are finding, that kind of training and induction easier to do face to face, not just the processes and procedures and things they do as part of the contact centre job, but also that kind of cultural induction into the organisation?
Yeah, I think that's a really key part of it. People understanding what the nature of the job is, being able to actually be in the contact centre physical environment, and understanding it's not just about learning systems and processes, but hey, there's noise, there's distractions, you've got screens, you've got multiple different applications you're going to have to look at while trying to navigate through a call or an interaction successfully. So yeah, I think it's really important, and again, it's a way to build relationships with team members and with other newbies. But like I say, the technology for training and self-paced learning, I'm actually a big believer in a combination because we all learn differently. So, a combination of in classroom, whether that's a virtual classroom or a physical classroom, being able to contribute, learn from each other, and then self-paced learning and then doing. And then, like I said earlier, just backed up by verification all throughout the training, so we know that actually the gateways that they need to pass before they can go to the next step, so that when they are graduated, we know that they can meet. I don't want to use the term minimum standards, but they will achieve the right level of standards to be able to manage a customer interaction. Because at the end of the day, regardless if they've been there day 1 or day 100, we need them to be able to handle the interactions in a particular way.
I have to say, I agree. I think learning in the office really will appeal to a few people. It helps with that team building thing, and it'll help them understand where they need to go to get support, even if it's with their peers and the new people that are joining the organisation. Some of the larger contact centres will be taking on a cohort of staff at a time, won't they? But Ramon, what sort of technologies are organisations able to deploy nowadays that helps them be more comfortable with their agents working from home? I'm thinking of support here, and that how do we get them into the market quicker as well?
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting things, and we touched on a few of them in the last episode. One is the wealth of analytics that's available, being able to do things like quality on 100% of calls with AI and those sorts of things, and the information that you find there, being able to surface that with a lens of what is the best way, or what are the, if I coach this person on 2 or 3 things, what would they be? And that becoming very personalized, and being able to get that without having to be near the person. It doesn't matter what their location is. I think that's one. And another one, we're starting to see a lot more technology around, I think, the more the soft side of things, like the sentiment of the agent and how they're going, tools that help you to identify, and this can come from the analytics as well. It might be, okay, Richard's just had 3 challenging calls in a row. What are we going to do? That might be a cue to prompt the supervisor to check in on them, or plan in automatically in a short break for that person. Those sorts of things. We're seeing more tools like that, as well as tools that just help people to be more engaged with the others that they're working with.
I think that's a really important point, is that sort of pastoral care of our agents, particularly when they're working from home. So those types of tools, being proactive and letting the supervisor know, I think you should check in with Bob because he needs some support, is massive. It was a big game changer. And because oftentimes agents won't say anything, right? Because or they'll behave and they might be more stressed on the next call, or they'll take an unplanned break. These negative, they'll react in some way, right? So we don't want them to react in negative behaviours. So if we can be more proactive, I think that's a really great thing. The other thing is, with AI sort of coming down the pipe, is the AI, because it's listened to the call or the interaction live, I guess, essentially, being able to provide post-interaction coaching on the spot, and providing the right knowledge, kind of, hey, here's the right process. I noticed that you struggled on with that process, or you said the wrong thing. Here's the actual correct process. So they're getting in the moment, at the time, coaching via AI. I think that again, it's emerging, but has a huge amount of potential to nip things in the bud and give the agents support in the moment when they need it.
Yeah, I imagine if I've had a bad call, a tricky call with a customer, and my supervisor gives me a ring a little bit late, maybe I've gone off to get a cup of tea or something, and my supervisor gives me a call, I'm going to feel so supported. Whereas, and I may not want to put my hand up to say that didn't go so well, but if they give me a call, I'll feel fantastic. That'll be great, and they the coaching that comes along with, and say, no, you did the right thing here, or maybe you want to fine tune a little bit there. It makes you feel like you're part of the team, even though you're actually not working in the same building, doesn't it?
And importantly, for the coaches and the team leaders, we're focusing them on the right things at the right time. Right now, particularly when it comes to scoring and QA and stuff like that, it's just completely random, and they may not pick up on those things because they don't know which call has got the problem in it, right? Whereas the AI can help identify that to the team leaders, so they're focusing on the right people at the right times. I think that's another big change for the team leader role.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think as well that the other things that we need to look at are what sort of technologies, what physical things that people need at home to actually work. And this slide's a really interesting one. What policies do you have in place to protect customer privacy as well? So working from home, remote working, you're looking at customer privacy. How do you stop people from taking data from your database and using that? It's a real challenge for security, isn't it? Kelly, perhaps you'd like to have a comment on that.
Well, I think things like screen recording sort of helps understanding what they're doing on, where they're navigating on the screen, as well as handling the interaction, and doing your due diligence. I think the slide before we sort of talked about, hang on, where is it? Might be the next slide. The next slide talks about what do we need to do, what's required for staff to work from home. So, speed and that type of thing, but it also is around that security. So what measures do we put in place to ensure that they're in a secure place, like they're not sitting at the dining room table and all the family members walking around them can see the screen and things like that. So yeah, it is a bit of a tricky one to navigate. Yeah.
The confidence level for those of you who are watching this video on YouTube, the confidence level of organisations in their staff's technology at home and their internet speeds is pretty interesting, isn't it? So there's no minimum requirement for about 33% of the people that were surveyed. That's a little surprising for me. Either that, or we're just saying that maybe technology doesn't need as much internet bandwidth as it used to.
Well, actually, I was talking with Saeed at 2 Degrees, and he said now they require their work from home agents to have a physical LAN connection from their laptops to their internet, so because the Wi-Fi is just not strong enough.
Yeah. It can be a very subjective thing, right? Like if you're in a big household, or the kids are busy on YouTube or something like that while you're trying to work. These things that automatically scale up and can consume your bandwidth. But I've definitely seen some of my customers have, some more than others, right? But have a range of issues with some of their work from home staff, particularly when the organisation doesn't manage the equipment. So what kind of router and Wi-Fi access point do you have, and what kind of headset are you using, and those sorts of things. So yeah, I'm not surprised some organisations might require a cable to be used.
A little bit of our discussion talks about how easy it is and how people want to work from home, and I think that leads us into this subject quite well: attrition and absenteeism. And people may not have seen that there's a link with this, but of course I think working from home, there's some statistics we had from last year about how attractive jobs are where people can work from home at least part of the week. But absenteeism, let's talk through this. It's really quite an interesting slide.
Yeah, if we look at, we can see that unplanned leave has declined since 2024. So we did see over COVID, no one was taking leave, and then after COVID, lots of unplanned leave, and then we're starting to see that sort of turn around a little bit. If we look at 0 to 5 and 6 to 10, so 52% of staff are not going over their unplanned or their planned leave allocations. So that's really good. And yeah, so I think the fact that we're seeing the unplanned come down is again a positive sign. So we've got lots of good things coming out of this report. We're seeing that our work from home people are performing better. We're having less unplanned leave. Some good signs.
Yeah, totally. And I think some of that, again, if we want to talk about technologies that are helping driving unplanned leave, I was talking to somebody who said that their workforce management system allowed them to manage small amounts of planned leave, where, say, for example, on a morning at 9 o'clock and you've got a doctor's appointment, but you don't want to take the whole day off, you might just want to take an hour off, then modern workforce management systems will let you just pick an hour and then fill that hour back in somewhere else, as long as there's capability across the rest of the workforce to do that.
Yeah, no, I think so. That's a massive game changer, isn't it? Because we don't want to have to take a half day or a whole day, because we only just need an hour to go and quickly, I don't know, get a waff or something, whatever it is. So yeah, that's a massive game changer, because it's giving our staffs a level of flexibility that they haven't had before in a very inflexible environment, which is a contact centre. So it's a really positive thing. So this unplanned leave, how do frontline staff report that they're unable to come into work? So 32% said that they must phone their team leader, or there's an on-duty team leader, 28%, or 28% like send me an email or an SMS, or phone someone else, or others. And then when do they need to provide a medical certificate? Majority said if they're sick for 3 or more consecutive days. I think that's just the standard, isn't it? So protocol. I was talking with an organisation the other day that have unlimited unplanned leave, or unlimited sick leave, as they offer as one of their sort of benefits, which I found really interesting. And they are seeing a little bit of a challenge with that. So we're curious to understand these sort of stats actually.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So are they, presumably that's something around performance management where they say, look, if you're doing the job as well as you should be doing, then we don't mind when you do it, or if you take extra sick leave or something like that. What do you think?
I don't know the detail of that. I was just quite surprised when they said unplanned, unlimited, or not unlimited, but not the standard 10 days, basically, which is it's a very positive thing because, people get sick. And sometimes these illnesses take a long time. So, to get well. So that's a very positive thing that they're doing for their workforce, in my opinion. But the trick is, managing it with, and again, it's usually outliers, right? We usually have most people follow the rules and do the right thing, and then if we've got some outliers that are taking more than than we expect or think they should, then that you work that through with them.
Yeah, the sunny day sick leave thing. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So,
every Monday and Friday, common days that you.
We've both seen it. We've all seen it.
We've all done it. Terrible, isn't it? I remember
Horrible.
doing that when I was in the contact centre. What a naughty agent I was. But anyway, that's a long time ago.
That might be Monday mornings recovering from Sundays. I'm not saying anything about that. Not for you, Kelly. Probably Ramon. But isn't it interesting? We've got this concept of having 10 days sick leave, so you're allowed to be sick for 10 days a year. The stress that must come when people are already sick about thinking that they're running out of sick days, is not going to help them get better, is it?
No, and people need the time, particularly with, there's a lot of terrible illnesses out there that they actually need the time to recover without that having that stress as well, because that certainly doesn't help.
Ramon, how many sick days have you had? Oh no, I can't ask you that, can I? No, but what's your views on that?
Well, I have worked somewhere that had a policy like that where employees received unlimited sick leave, and there was two sides to the coin, right? There was probably a higher expectation around showing that you were legitimately sick, especially if there was an extended amount of leave that was being taken, or if there was a reoccurring sort of a pattern. Personally, I really liked it because it really took away that risk, like Kelly was saying, if somebody has an extended illness and they haven't accrued that much sick leave, that they know that they're going to be at least covered from that point of view. So there's a bit of shared responsibility in that one.
Yeah. Okay, so frontline attrition, we see the big difference between frontline at 19% attrition versus team leaders at only 7%. So, as people sort of climb up the ranks, I guess, so to speak, with different roles and responsibilities, we do see a difference in the attrition. So I think that's really interesting. And we see that on average, 28% of people that do leave go externally, which means that, what's my math, 60, something, 70, whatever it is, 2%, are staying within the organisation, which is the classic that we've all known for many, many years. As a lot of people join the organisation into the contact centre, we train them up beautifully, we teach them all about the organisation, and then other departments come along and steal them off us. So it's been happening since the time began, because we do such a great job with them. So, but it is good that, and that's a way to attract people in too, is like, there are wider opportunities in the organisation.
It's the incubation centre, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I was just going to say some organisations make people commit. So you must stay for a minimum of X amount of time in the contact centre, otherwise you will not be considered for roles in other departments. And obviously, other departments need to adhere to that rule as well. So that's one way to get around that.
Yep, no, that's a good one. The stat that leapt out for me in that slide was 19% of frontline agents need to be replaced annually. That's 1 in 5. Almost 1 in 20.
That's pretty good, actually. That's not too bad.
As in pretty good compared to other places, or?
Well, across sort of APAC, it can be up into the 30s, 40s%. So 19% is actually really good, because there's multiple reasons that people leave. It may not, there's lots of different reasons people leave. And we just recently did a project with a client in Australia who had 100% attrition. I might have mentioned this before. So they were having to hire 20 agents every month to replace the 20 that had resigned. And there were multiple factors influencing that high attrition, and a lot of it was to do with the onboarding process, the training process, the way that they were supported when they first hit the floor. Things like they had exactly the same targets on day one that tenured agents had. There was a lot of pressure around things like adherence to schedule and AHT, so really sort of driven through those types of KPIs that were really freaking the agents out, because they knew if they're going to be longer, but they're having team leaders hammer them to get their average handle time down. So yeah, it was a very interesting exercise to understand what was driving that attrition. But definitely something you want to have a look at. What have we got here? So yeah, again, we see the big difference between team leaders and frontline staff. Team leaders stay longer. But again, 43% staying between 18 and 24 months, I think is pretty good again. And only 9% leaving within a year. I think those are pretty good results once again.
That is, isn't it? It is really interesting. Yeah, 47% of respondents stated that frontline staff stay for more than 2 years. So once you're in and you enjoy it, you're staying, aren't you? But maybe
Yeah.
there's a regular turnover of those people. There's possibly the old 80-20 rule. 80% of them will not like it and 20 stay or something. But yeah, maybe. So moving on to our next subsection of this, let's have a look at recruitment and training. And it's very timely, isn't it, Kelly? Bearing in mind what you were just talking about. How do you actually get these people on board, and how do you get them to stay? Which is what we're looking at. And we all know that training is a really expensive part of bringing somebody on board. I mean, it's probably all of it, but it's an expensive thing to be able to do, isn't it?
It is, and this stat tells us that in New Zealand we like to do the recruitment ourselves. We don't typically use recruitment agencies. We might use recruitment agencies for particular projects or peaks or temps and that type of thing. But when it comes to full-time, FTEs, we typically do it ourselves. I think it's important to calibrate our people that are doing interviews to make sure that they're interviewing in the same way, just like they're doing their QA scoring. Are they scoring the same way? Same with, they're performing the interviews in the same way, and in scoring those candidates in the same way. I think is an important part of the process. Okay, so this. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to ask you the question. So how are they getting them? So agencies are falling to a last ditch thing by the sounds of things, or they're remaining low. But how are our people actually getting hold of their agents? What's the...
Well, I think in the labour market we currently have in New Zealand, particularly in certain areas like Wellington and stuff like that, there's plenty of candidates, right? So we will often, we will turn to recruiters when the labour pool is tight. And there's a combination of different things that we'll do. Obviously, we might start with phone screening. Then we will do a face-to-face or a video call. Again, that same organisation that we work with, we're doing all of their interviewing via video. And then people would actually walk into the training room the first day and they were like, gosh, if we had known what we know now, we wouldn't have hired them. So there is a lot of merit into having a face-to-face interview. As I said earlier, verification through that test, so that minimum skills or what things do we need them to be able to do before we even make them an offer. I had one chap that I was talking to was we do a lot of interviews with groups of agents to get their understand what they think about things. That's a big part of what we do at COPC when we're doing assessments and things like that. And this one chap was incredibly positive and really excited about the role, and he just kept lift everybody up. But unfortunately, they had to let him go because his computer skills were so poor, and that was really devastating to him. And he was, very upset by it. So, the organisation let obviously themselves down because the cost of recruiting that person, but they really let that person down too, and it really sort of knocked his confidence. So we've got to be very careful with that sort of stuff, I think. So all of that the appropriate testing before the offer's made, and then again, like I said, the appropriate testing and verification through training and nesting before they hit the floor. And then we also recommend that we do annual verification of all our agents to make sure that they are using the right, they're doing the right thing, because a lot of stuff can change in 12 months.
That's true. Different type of training, isn't it? Yeah.
So basically re-verifying the agents.
It's very nice to see that on the right-hand side of our screen here, we've got a slide for those of you who are listening in. Rank the following skills in order of importance for new frontline staff. The larger the number, the more important the skill is. So what I'm seeing at the bottom of here is industry qualifications, which is interesting. I wasn't going to start on that one, but that's right at the bottom at the moment. And right at the top, we've got customer service skills and a CX mindset. So I can see, it's a personality discussion. It's people who have the right skills to talk to customers, be empathetic, yeah? And the other skills like sales, upselling, typing, speed, accuracy, some of that technical ability is a little bit further down. Kelly, what do you think of that?
Yeah, it really comes down to not just having a job description, but actually clearly defining what are the minimum skills required, that's hard skills and soft skills, for an agent to do this job. We went through an exercise with a client recently, and we identified 500 individual skills between, what systems they need to know, empathy, all of them. So a job description is not going to give us that level of detail. And then we need to figure out, of all of those 500 skills, what do they need to bring to the table before we even hire them? And what are we going to train them on? And that's going to be different for each contact centre, but there will be some common skills, obviously, like customer service type skills, listening skills, questioning, clarifying, those more soft skills. If they can bring that to the table is really positive. It's kind of a bit harder to teach that than it is hard skills like product knowledge and system knowledge. I think this too leads to where technology tools like really great knowledge bases, so with AI co-pilots and things that on top, these types of tools can really help our agents speed to competency, increase their accuracy, all of that type of stuff. When they're actually on the floor, so we can ideally have less time in training rooms and more time, we're giving them the right tools in the moment to do the job well.
I think those tools are having a huge impact, particularly in contact centres where the work is highly multi-skilled, and also that attrition rate that we were talking about before. It's tools like this that make a contribution to decreasing the impact of that attrition rate and having to retrain, and how, like you were saying, time to competency.
Yeah. Yeah, so how long is it taking to recruit? Obviously, doing it in the right way, so you're actually delivering competent and really great candidates into the training program is really important. However long that takes, it's kind of like, it's about the end goal, right? Like, how good are the candidates that we're seeing? Importantly, though, is more looking forward. So working with your workforce management teams to understand, right, what is our attrition rate? What have we got coming up in the next couple of months? How many FTE do we need? And based on that, when do we need to start recruiting? Because we know our recruiting process typically takes 30 days to get good quality candidates. So that would be my sort of key message there. But yeah, top 2 box, either 83% saying that they feel that they've got a really good recruitment process. It's effective, so it's a positive thing.
I'm really
Sorry,
interested.
Richard.
I was going to say I'm really interested in that stat because we have a high turnover of agents that come into the role. It's kind of, they quickly turn over. They don't stay very long, but we also feel that the recruitment process is effective or even very effective. There's 83% of us feel that that's right. Can those two stats sit in the same place together?
Well, I think they do, because we're seeing the results of the sort of longevity, about 18 to 24 months, which is actually very good. That was I can't remember, was 53 or whatever the stat was we looked at earlier. So agents are staying a decent amount of time. So that would marry nicely with this stat as well. So again, sort of more positive news, I think, on that front. So we're recruiting well. Because we're recruiting well, we've got good candidates. We're obviously training them well, and then they're staying a decent amount of time. So it's a win-win. Okay. So how long is your frontline new agent, new hire training? I remember an organisation I worked for many years ago now, but it was a 6-week induction program, 3 weeks of which were teaching people where to find stuff in the knowledge base. So, yeah, I was like, wow. So there's lots of opportunity there to trim things up. And I think the big one with onboarding training is how much time, again, another client we worked with, we're redesigning and working with them to redesign their whole induction and program. And one of the things we are changing is that they will, every single day that they're in induction, they will start with a test about yesterday, and it might just be a nice fun quiz thing. They do some obviously training and teaching, and then every day they are on the floor doing buddying and doing side by sides with agents on doing live calls. So they're learning, and then they're watching, and they're observing, and then they're doing. So then they'll go and do some calls and things like that. So we're finding that that combination is much more effective because it's embedding the learning as opposed to being in a classroom for a week and then chucking them into nesting. So there are lots of different ways of doing that. And here's my soapbox about verification. Only 48% of you are doing a formal assessment that the agents have to pass before going live on the floor and handling customer interactions. So I think this is a little bit of bad news, unfortunately. I would strongly encourage you to, if you're not doing that now, to do that. Because remember, you're letting these people loose on your customers. And if they're not complying with legal and privacy and that sort of thing, and if you're only listening to 1 or 2 or 3 of their calls or interactions a month, there's a lot of stuff that will be slipping through the gaps, and that is a real risk to the to your organisation. So that's a really important one for me.
Well, Ramon can help us with sweeping up after that, but I agree with the sentiment. That's probably an error that we could see coming, isn't it? That we could probably stop.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, Kelly, as well on that with certifications. Are you seeing increased use of tools to help to do that? So both reminders to test people's competency, but also just to manage that process.
Yeah, definitely. And there's lots of fun ways to go around verification, right? It doesn't have to be a big, serious test. So it might just be little, like, what's that, Caboodle? A lot of organisations use Caboodle and fun things like that, so you can make it fun. I know that Genesis Cloud has what's it called, please, where they can rank the agents or they rank them. What is it called again? Sorry.
All of its gamification features
Gamification.
that
Yeah.
it has, yeah, and you can do quizzes and those sorts of things in the platform,
Yeah.
and so on. And I was thinking as well, potentially you could use your quality process to do some of that, in a less direct way as well.
Definitely. And again, it's not one solution, right? Or magic bullet, whatever.
Mm.
It's like there's multiple different ways we can do that. So we are tapping into all the different ways that people learn and like to be recognized as well.
Mm.
So it's important. Yeah, so this one, poor old team leaders, they're the ones that miss out the most on ongoing training. Frontline FTEs, we're constantly teaching them in training, whether that's via a team meeting, hey, there's a new thing, or a notification on the knowledge base saying this particular procedure's been updated, or it's an email, or it's a Teams chat, whatever it is. We're constantly, or should be constantly communicating with our FTEs and teaching them about changes, products, services, that type of thing. Team leaders are the ones that miss out the most. Only 22% have an ongoing development program for their team leaders. I think there's a massive opportunity there, and importantly, a lot of organisations do not have a formal training program when agents move into a team leader role. They're sort of taught on the job. Again, I would encourage you to, really have some sort of formal program, like this is how you do QA, this is how you score, this is how you coach. Those skills they're not learning on the floor as an agent, are they?
Can I just pause this for a second? We might have to rewind and re-record it, I think, or at least chop me out from this bit. But if I've read this well, if I've read it correctly, actually it's customer contact center managers that have the least amount of ongoing training, not the team leads.
You're right.
The blue
You're right,
is
yeah.
yeah.
I got there around the wrong way. Yeah, you probably want to chop that out, because I got that. I read it the wrong way.
Well, no doubt Elias can press a nice little button there to remind him to go back and edit it out. But it's worth talking about because as you go up the tree,
yeah,
you can see that people don't
get less
the
training.
Yeah. And I learned a heck of a lot when I first joined a contact center, but then as you go on through life, you tend not to get the training. So yeah, thoughts. Do you want to do that slide again?
I think so. I think this is really interesting data about ongoing training, because we can see that, as we always do, our agents are getting ongoing training. We're updating them in multiple different ways about changes to systems and products, and whether we're using a Teams chat or an email or a team meeting or a formal training module that they all have to go through when changes are made. Interestingly, if you'd seen this stat maybe 4 or 5 years ago, team leaders were the ones that were really missing out. But it's really encouraging to see that 78% of contact centres now have ongoing training for their team leaders as well. It's really important that we, particularly if they're moving from an agent role to a team leader role, that we teach them how to coach, how to score QA, all of those sort of people management and leadership skills that they don't learn as an agent. So I think that's really important. And as we go up the chain, we can see the contact center managers have the least amount of ongoing training. So only sort of 38% have that for their leadership. So yeah.
Well, the answer has to be, Kelly, that there isn't anybody surely in the industry doing this contact center manager training, doesn't it?
Well, that's an interesting point, Richard, because obviously that's what COPC do. We have lots of different operations management leadership courses that we can do in person, or you can do them online in real time and also recorded. So go onto our website. There's so much great content and courseware there, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of bring COPC into the New Zealand market, because I knew there was a massive hole in that particular area. So thanks, Richard.
My pleasure.
What have we got here? So how many hours of training are provided each month? So frontline FTEs, below 20, and we're doing self-paced learning is increased for frontline staff. And we've seen a drop in in-person classroom training. So, that's probably a reflection of, where people are located. Are they work from home? Are they working in the office? Would probably reflect how we're actually doing the training. But it's really important, particularly with onboarding training, that we are assessing the effectiveness of those agents when they hit the floor. So if we see that, a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they're still not performing very well, what happened in training? Did they not learn this? So we've got to have a constant dialogue between, the leadership on the floor and the training teams to make sure that the training is delivering what it needs to deliver well prepared agents.
People learn in different ways, don't they? That's right.
Yeah.
Now, really interesting. So our next section is on staff feedback and management. So let's have a look into the figures on there. How often do we do structured reviews with our staff? So I'm really pleased to see on this slide that 82% of our people, actually 87 actually, do it more than once a month. So that's really good, or once a month or more. So that's really good, isn't it? But some folks only get it once a quarter. That's only 13% of folks getting it once a quarter. That's right, isn't it? That's quite good, isn't it?
I think on paper 87 you think, oh, that's good, but once a month I get 30 minutes with my team leader, that's formally. I think it should be a lot more. It has increased from 48% to 82%, but the bi-weekly's dropped 21%. So we used to do it every 2 weeks, and now it's dropped by 21 points. Why is that? Because taking it away, we should be going the other way. We should be doing it more frequently. And again, with all these awesome tools that AI are going to bring to us, like I said earlier, focusing team leaders on the right people at the right time. So there would be a lot more ad hoc coaching going on, right? So you may not need to increase your formal monthly, but if you've got a team leader spending 70 to 80% of their day doing ad hoc coaching for agents in the moment when they need it, that's going to make a massive difference. So that's where the game changer opportunity is, I think, when it comes to these sort of two formal reviews and coaching.
Great. Maybe some of the technology's taking over there in terms of how the regular day-to-day coaching comes on. Interesting.
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the next slide.
I could spend 2 hours on this slide. When it comes to...
We've got about 2 minutes.
I've got to go out at 30 seconds. Yeah, this is a massive one. We all come to work, or most of us come to work every day and want to do a good job. So when I get to have a KPI put on front of me, I'm going to try and achieve it. So putting the wrong KPIs in front of agents is going to drive the wrong behaviour. It's pure and simple. So we can see, we've had AHT drop from 55 to 50%. Very strong believer in not having an AHT target for agents, because if it's, say, 8 minutes, they're going to try and make every single call hit 8 minutes or less, and not understanding that it's actually a range because it's an average. So you can have a 10 or 15 minute conversation. That's okay. You can have a 2-minute conversation. And if you fall between, 6 to 10 minutes, that's okay. We use average handle time for workforce management primarily to understand how many bums and seats we need and how we need to be staffed. But there is a real risk in targeting agents to average handle time. Giving them a range, I much prefer if you feel that you need to do that, so they know where they've got some wriggle room. But you will find agents, and there's a sort of misconception out there that it's a target. Okay, it's not an average, so that's the big risk in that one. Like I said, I could go on and on, but I will not. Let's move to the next slide.
I'm sure that our listeners could get in touch with you and go through that with you a bit
Oh,
later on.
definitely. I would be absolutely more than happy if anyone wanted to, contact me, and I'm more than happy to go through that slide in detail and talk through, what's important and why.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, let's have a look at this slide, which is the feedback channels. What channels do we have in place to gather feedback from employees?
Yeah, no surprises here, really. We've sort of got our employment annual sort of surveys. Interesting to know how often people are doing these surveys. We've got team meetings, exit interviews are always quite interesting. Yeah, so again, the key point here is if we get feedback, what are we doing with it? So if agents are telling us this is a big problem and we don't like it, what are we doing about it? Are we actually making any changes? Are we respecting their candidness and their, openness, and making changes based on what they're feeding back? And remember, the agents are the ones that are dealing with our customers. They've got the gold. They know what's working and what's not working. So this is an incredibly valuable, important piece of the puzzle.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah, I sometimes I've felt dissatisfied with my workplace when I've done a review or a survey, and I think that there's some value in what's been said, and it almost seems a little bit like lip service, doesn't it? But then if you actually have somebody whose job it is to follow these things up and make sure that they're addressed, or explain to people why they're not addressed, it makes you feel much more part of the party, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Employee benefits, seeing the paid off time for not-for-profit activities and volunteer activities, seeing that increase, that's really cool. It's a neat thing to get involved in charities and have that day to do that sort of stuff. Food's always been a big part of contact centres, hasn't it? Particularly if they're coming in the office. Discounts, private healthcare increased by 9 points, so that's really, really good. So yeah, sort of typical, and 91% now offering sort of EAP support. So it's all good stuff.
Moving on to cultural, and how are we including Māori culture in our contact centres? How's that being viewed these days?
Yeah, 68% are doing that, which is, I think, it's a really great thing. It's what makes New Zealand unique. And some are saying that only 8% they said they haven't started that journey, but the majority, 77%, said they're well on their way with that as part of their strategy. So that's great stuff.
Well, this is brilliant, isn't it?
Definitely.
Well, I'd just like to thank you both, Ramon and Kelly, for spending time with us and talking to us about the COPC report. I've had my eyes open to a few things here, and quite pleasantly, I'd like to say that I'm really pleased to see the direction that the country's going in. Ramon, do you have a couple of closing thoughts before we move on to Kelly?
I'm just thinking.
Kelly, would you have some closing thoughts before I move on to Ramon? Sorry.
I think generally it's positive news. It's good stuff. There's lots of really good things in there that we've talked through. So yeah, very positive.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased to see some of the comparisons to prior year surveys, particularly with how things are evolving in that work at home space, and also the improvements that are happening around attrition. I think those are really positive signs for the industry.
I think if we wanted to also mention that we're actually going to look at the survey for this year. The team are going to do a look at the questions and what we're asking. So if you have anything in particular that you feel we should include, I'm not going to make any promises we will, but if there's anything in particular you'd like to know from the industry, particularly from New Zealand industry, that you'd like to include, please let us know, and we'll consider those for this year's survey, which will be in about October-ish, September, October.
Yeah, great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's right. This is a really important piece of research, we feel, because it's the only one that I know of that is totally focused on the New Zealand market. So
yeah,
let us know what matters to you.
absolutely.
definitely is. And we can help drive and expose technologies from people and help drive training courses and help CCNNZ itself represent the contact centre people out there. So I'll draw this to a conclusion. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, and watch out for more podcasts coming from CCNNZ. Like and subscribe on YouTube or listen on your favourite podcast channel. Thank you very much.